Hi, welcome to SBRForum Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. We are previewing UFC 157 right now with returning guest Nick Kalikas, professional MMA oddsmaker, and Greg Delong calling in, joining us on the phone. He is the host of Inside the Cage Radio at InsideTheCageRadio.com and ProMMANow.com. All right, now we're going to talk about Urijah Faber and Ivan Menjivar. Now, Faber's a minus 360 favorite, and Faber, we all know his deal. Very, very popular fighter, getting, a ton of, he's had a ton of title shots, and, kind of had a mediocre record. I think he's 5-5 in his last 10 fights. He's a minus 360 favorite here. It looks like they're setting him up to sort of prop him up a little bit and get a guaranteed win. Greg Delong, what do you think?
Well, in those last 10 fights, if you look at Faber, yes, Faber does have losses. But let's look at the guys he's lost to.
Sure.
They've always been in title fights, and they've been against the studs. And we just seen what Renan Barão just did this past weekend with a finish on Michael McDonald. Couldn't do that to Faber. I think Menjivar and Faber are very similar. They like to get in scrambles. Faber's just better at it. And you can't even say Menjivar is like, hey, he's a young, upcoming guy, and this may be his breakout fight, because Menjivar's been in the game as long as Faber's been in there. They're both a little bit old in the tooth kind of there. So I'm taking Faber in this one all day. I think every position he'll be in, he'll be a little bit better than Menjivar in it, and I think that's going to be enough. We tend to forget, how tough Faber is because we see him losing those fights, but he's losing to the very best guy in the weight class, and he's not getting blown out of there.
Right. No, I completely agree with you, and that's what I was getting at when I introed this. It looks like they're just kind of like setting Faber up to get a win. Wouldn't you say, Nick?
Yeah, I think at this point, because I totally agree with what Greg said. I think he nailed this fight. And I actually opened the line 4-1 for Faber. Another spot out there, opened it like 170, 180 or something like that originally, and got bet up to. But I think 4-1's kind of a fair line because they do match up well. As Greg just mentioned too, I think they're very similar fighters in regards that they're so well-rounded. But the problem is Faber's just better everywhere.
Right.
I mean, there's not a spot that he's not. Like a big technical advantage actually over. Now, of course, Menjivar's dangerous off his back. He showed that in his last couple fights too as well. But I think that Faber has enough sub-defense that he's going to probably avoid anything on the ground if it goes underground. And on the feet, he should be able to kind of manhandle Menjivar at this point. Menjivar's a great fighter, but he is getting to that point where he's starting to decline a little bit as well.
Right.
And Faber's going to hit that eventually here soon too. I think. He's been around for so long. He's been in so many great fights. But Greg said this as well, that the guys that he's lost to, as you know, have been all champion level guys. I mean, either title holders or at that level. So Faber's definitely up at the top of each weight class that he's in. I mean, he's always been in title contention or up there in those regards. So I think the Faber, kind of like you said, almost has a gimme here. Menjivar's never a gimme, though. We shouldn't say that. He does have an outside shot, but I would think the Faber.
No, I completely agree with you. And like you say, it's not a gimme here. And with these types of fights where it's obvious someone's being set up for a win in kind of a gimme situation, I mean, we've covered a bunch of these fights. You're usually seeing like minus 750, minus 825, and that was kind of what I was expecting here a little bit. And minus 360, I gotta tell you, it seems a little low. Just like you said, like Menjivar was someone that they were expecting to beat, but he was younger and maybe come out and surprise. But are we really gonna see any surprises from Menjivar? What do you think, Greg Delong? You think is Menjivar gonna surprise us in any way?
No, this is one of those guys that have been in the sport a long time. When you see it with younger fighters, the fighter from the previous fight is not the same one in the next fight because there's so much improvement going on. When you have guys like Faber and Menjivar that have been in the sport so long, you are not going to see any drastic changes. All they're going to do is refine certain things or make their game plan specific to the fighter. But we know what we're getting with Faber and Menjivar. We know. There's not going to be some drastic improvement by Menjivar or Faber. We know what we're getting, and what we're getting is two fighters that are very similar, and Faber just happens to be better.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, if I had 36 grand lying around, would I bet that to win 10 on Faber? I think I would. What do you think?
36 to win 10. I think this fight's closer than the Rousey one. I mean, Menjivar can do something. There's capable, the one thing about Faber is, and it happened with Mike Brown, although Faber getting submitted, you don't see, but he got one of those crazy scrambles and got caught by an elbow. Menjivar's pretty slick with submissions. There could be a crazy scramble, and he could get caught. I think this one is a little bit rougher to throw that amount of money on than Rousey.
I'm saying, absolutely, he could get caught, but at these odds, is it worth a bet saying no? I don't know. I think so. What do you think?
You know what I think? I think there's always better fights out there. I mean, the fights that I like to bet are the fights that are going to be a little bit more competitive, where it might take a little bit more brain work to find the advantage in the fight. But if you lose, you're not going to lay 2-1, well, over 2-1, 3-1, 4-1. I don't like laying over 2-1 that often. Right. I mean, I will do it if I think there is value for sure. So I'm not saying I don't bet big favorites, but at the same time, most of the time I do look for value, and I think around 4-1, 3.5 to 1. There's not a lot of value value on Urijah Faber there. So I would leave it alone because, I mean, chances are, you know, he does win, but if he doesn't, you're going to take a while to make up that 4-1 loss.
Will.
So
you sure will. Is Faber still a public darling that takes, like, you know, a lot of public action? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's one of the biggest stars in the UFC, period. I don't care of any weight class. I mean, Faber has that branding, has the name, and then he has the talent to back it up, you know.
Yeah, so then it's hard to imagine he would ever have value on any of his lines, really.
Right, exactly.
Right. All right, well, thanks, guys. Well, I'm a believer in Faber, and I think, maybe I'm a square, but I think I would take him at 3.5 to 1. All right, let's move on to Lawler and Koshik.